Hello and welcome back to another episode of Doctor in a Bikini. I am joined by my friend and not on purpose, but my first male guest, Schuyler. How are
That's
you?
just, I'm doing great. That's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. I don't know why I stuttered there. I swear it's like prep brain and like third show. My body's just like slowing down a little bit today, but it's all good. We're going to have a good talk today.
We are.
So I'm going to introduce you for those who don't know you. I brought you on for a very specific reason. I'm going to say off the top of the episode. I feel like predominantly a lot of the audience happens to be female. I have a lot of male listeners too, but mostly female. And the number one concern or comment I tend to get from people is they want recommendations of a male coach that can connect with them and understand them. And they want, more importantly, someone they feel like they can trust and does things for a reason. And you are actually one of the very few people that I know that I don't know out of my own gym that I feel like you fit all the criteria perfectly and you're just a fun, really nice dude. So yeah, I wanted to bring you on here for that. So I'm
That's
going to
awesome.
give your formal bio here. So tell me how to pronounce your last name, by the way.
Team is fun.
Oh, I should have just went with the gut. Dang it.
Yep.
So Schuyler Deem is a fat loss coach. He is the owner of Reach Fat Loss and Fitness, a holistic company focused on helping clients lose weight sustainably, all without counting calories, giving up favorite foods, or tons of cardio. You've helped clients lose over 1,700 pounds this year.
Yep. As of last two weeks ago or a week and a half ago, 1,700.
That's insane. I feel like you also do a really good job of, and I said this to you in an Instagram message too. You are very diligent and informative, but you're also really fun to listen to. So even though you're not my own coach, I feel like I learn a lot from you and your posts, and they're also really entertaining. So thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is a bunch of flattery. It's nice.
That's always the most awkward part is when someone just gas me up and you're like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
I've thankfully I feel like I've gotten a little better at taking compliments the last few years because I used to be the person that just like was crawling in my skin if someone said something good about me, but I'm just like, no, like I've done some pretty cool things and
Do
I'll accept that compliment.
you feel like part of that is turning 30? It's like a new leaf for you.
That's it. Yeah. Woke up wiser. Yeah, it's just better.
Honestly, so if you've listened to the podcast at all, I'm all about keeping things relatable. And that for sure is something I'm working on. I just said that to you before I hit record, is accepting attention and not being afraid to own up to the things that you work hard for and that you're proud of. I think for some reason we tend to shy away from that. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. I read something too where it's if you struggle taking a compliment, you're also kind of hurting the person who's giving the compliment. Because if you've ever complimented someone before and they back down, it's like your compliment loses steam and it doesn't feel as good. So it feels good to give.
Huh. I never thought about it like that, but that's a really good way to think about it.
Yeah. So it's just like accept the compliment, even if it feels a little uncomfortable. Take it into consideration, say thank you, and move on.
See, look at that. You're already given like the wisest coaching, not just fitness and fat loss, but life coaching, how to
Right.
love oneself better. Man, we're off to a hot start already. What got you into this originally?
It's been a long journey. There's like probably 20 plus things that got me into it, but my dad was a big health freak growing up. And so he was always lifting weights. He would get up super early before he would go into his job and work out in the mornings. And then he'd be working out on the weekends. And I would always like see him because we had a tiny little gym in our basement. And so that kind of like it introduced me to it. And then we had a lot of health food in our house, all organic. He was very careful about what he bought. And it was funny because when that started, I hated it. I was like this little kid who just wanted to eat sugary cereal and just relax on the weekends. But then obviously, as I grew older, I just started to grow an appreciation for it. And in middle school, I was tiny kid, super insecure. Um, and I was like, you know what? I had a couple friends who lifted weights, and I was like, I'll just start going to the gym, start working out, see what happens. And just over a couple years, built an insane passion for it. And then the nutrition kind of came on the back end where for the first couple of years, I didn't really know what I was doing, didn't even think that it was connected to the results I had in the gym, but I just started learning more. And from there, that blossomed. And then it was just like the combination of eating right, lifting weights, and noticing how good I can feel that just got me even more addicted and more obsessed with learning about it.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I think some of my friends who are parents, they worry that because I think now we're almost I don't know if fearful is the right word, but it's a very important thing to a lot of people to know what's in our food and to teach kids that, the why behind why we should care about food. And I think some parents tend to voice that they're a little afraid that it's like if it's the forbidden fruit, then their kids are going to turn around and want to be like anti-health. So it's interesting you say that you grew up in a home that prioritized that before it was trendy, uh,
Mhm.
and you found your own why through that as well. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. That's the thing. I definitely didn't appreciate the nutrition side growing up. Like I was definitely the opposite, where it was like a relief to go to friends' houses and have their sugary food, or their food with the processed ingredients. And then I had some pretty tough digestive and anxiety issues in high school and college. And I was able to figure out that a lot of that was caused from what I was eating. So then, yeah, I found my own why, and it was just different from what most of us experience, which is like that food's bad. It's like, okay, what's bad about it? Like, why should I avoid it? If it tastes really good, that's kind of what I'm focused on. But if you have a deeper connection of, well, this makes me feel off, this makes me feel anxious, bloated, then there's more of a reason to actually make better choices.
Do you mind if I ask how you went about figuring that out, that correlation?
Yeah, it was like a longer process. It wasn't like a single aha moment, but I just started learning a little bit more about ingredients after I graduated college.
Mhm.
And, after I got out of college too, I wasn't drinking as much. That was a big trigger for me, was alcohol. But then after learning about ingredients and cleaning things up over time, I just started to make that connection of like, hey, if I have a couple days where I eat a lot of processed wheat, I'm way more anxious than if I don't. Or if I have more sugar or if I have more artificial sweeteners, like whatever the case may be, I just started to notice I feel better without them.
Yeah, no, I think there's something really valuable about that. I think even in our household, I mean, I think I told you when we met, which I totally missed an opportunity there because I don't know if I'll ever be able to say this, but you and I met on a photo shoot for a
Yeah.
magazine. So weird. It was really cool, but yeah, I'll never be able to say that sentence again, I don't think.
Yeah.
But when we were, I mean, I feel like I started chatting with you like I knew you right off the bat. I don't know if that's just my personality or if I just felt like I could chat with you like I knew you. But I think I'd mentioned to you in our household, Connor's very much like, nope, never gonna step into a trunk of into oh my gosh, into board shorts on a stage. And for me, I'm like, I love it. I want to make it to Olympia one day. Like we're very opposite in our goals, but same in the sense of there's a lot of things we prioritize health and fitness wise. And like Connor and I used to love getting coffee, but he realized for him, coffee is a huge trigger with anxiety, like debilitating. So, our house has been very attentive for different reasons. And I think both of us found there's different triggers in foods and drinks for us that make us more anxious, make us more restless, maybe more foggy in our head. And I think with every show, with every prep too, there's more and more that I uncover where I'm like, shoot, there's not a whole lot out there that is super good for me. That's conveniently found at the store, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it depends where you shop because a lot of spots they're getting the message. Like a lot of people are picking up on these processed ingredients are not making us feel very good. And so they're being a little more intentional with the quality of ingredients. But the coffee one's interesting because I fluctuate in and out. Like I only drink coffee about 2 days a week now. But what I started doing was taking L-theanine with it, which is a compound that's in green tea that basically like counter affects some of the anxiety things that can come with the caffeine. So
Hmm.
I'm curious with your husband of if he took it, if he noticed a difference. But yeah, it definitely it matters what you're putting in your body. And I think a lot of people are on autopilot where they're so used to listening to this is healthy, this is not healthy, that they forget to listen to what their body's saying in response to what they eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of why I asked you how you went about figuring out and connecting those dots. Because I think especially people who are, let's just say, young and healthy, and you want to go to a general provider, because I've been in this situation a lot and I am a healthcare provider. where you go to the doctor, you say, hey, I'm noticing these things in my body. And it's not, unfortunately, consistent where you find someone that has the answers or maybe asks about your food, asks about your sleep, your life stressors, things like that. So that's why I asked you, someone who was able to connect the dots on your own. Sometimes we don't really know what the heck we're going through, especially if we've been doing it forever. Like, oh, I've had coffee every day, or
Mhm.
I've always drank on the weekends with my friends, or I've always been a chocolate fanatic or something. It can be hard to know where to start or where to get your information from. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on, because I think you seem to be very well informed about a lot of these everyday topics.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of hidden things in terms of ingredients and things that we're told are healthy that aren't the best. But I think the ultimate jump for me was just accepting that if I'm not feeling good, it's not just like an accident. It's not just like I woke up feeling more tired and that's just what's happening. Like it's cause and effect. So
Mhm.
if I feel bloated or if I feel anxious or if I feel tired, like any of these things that I don't want to feel, it's not just like it's happening to me and I'm a victim. It's I've done something in the last, 12 to 24 hours, even 36 hours that is now impacting how I feel.
Yeah. Do clients come to you a lot with these types of questions?
Yeah, I think once, because one of the things we teach them pretty early in the program is like listen to your body. And instead of doing the typical American thing, which is if you're tired, you get coffee. If you have a stomach ache, you get Tums, any of these things, like
Yeah.
you start to just ask why, it starts to become way clearer. So I'll get some people who say, hey, especially when we get into like the fasting part of, hey, I was a little more tired or a little more hungry during this fast, or, you know, I couldn't sleep last night. And then we can kind of brainstorm together. But a lot of times, as soon as people accept that, if I made a decision, it could have caused me to feel this way, they can kind of go through the process of elimination of, well, what did I do in the last 24 hours that could be creating this?
Yeah. Well, let's get right into that because you mentioned fasting there, and I love watching whenever you talk about fasting. It's so interesting. I've never personally gone through a 24-hour fast, but Chandler, your client, when I met the both of you, she just casually was like, "Yeah, the 24-hour fast," and you said, "Yeah, 24-hour fast." And I was like, "Y'all both just fast for 24 hours, and we're just gonna graze on over that." So, yeah, tell us about this Schuyler method, if you will.
Yeah, I love fasting. I'm actually in the middle of one right now, and the biggest the biggest thing that I've noticed is that our society is obsessed with food, and we've become really dependent on it. Where most people, I'm assuming, is like if they go 3, 4 hours without food, it's kind of like a freak out. It's like, where am I going to get my next meal, my next snack? But if you take a look at our history as humans, we are so well adapted to not having food. Like back in the day, we didn't have grocery stores that we could just walk into and order a sandwich at a restaurant next door. Like we had to go out and find food. And a lot of times there was periods where there wasn't a lot of food. So our bodies are naturally really able to handle these periods without food very, very well. And it's actually extremely beneficial if done correctly. But what we find is that people just love food and people just, they don't give themselves the benefit of sparing their body the time of having to digest. And so with the fasting we do, it's funny that you mentioned Chandler and just glazing over the 24s, because when you do them the right way, they really do become easy. For everyone who does the first time, it's different. I've had people come into my program and they are kind of struggling with the first 24s and it's a big mental hurdle. And then I have other people who the first one, it's just like, oh, that was so easier, way easier than I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
So I just love it. I mean, we have people pushing in our program, like we're doing a group fast right now, actually. And we have people doing like 48 hours, 72 hours. Some people are going to be pushing beyond that. And it sounds insane, but it is so crazy when your body adapts to it, how good you can feel. Because if your body doesn't have the glucose, the sugar in its bloodstream, it doesn't have the sugar in the muscles, and it switches over to burning body fat or ketones for fuel, it can be a really, really clean source of energy.
Yeah. Do you start people with less than 24 hours, or is it best to just go ahead and full send into this 24-hour fast?
I like to throw people in the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll get someone who's like very anxious about it and who hasn't done any sort of fasting. So if that's the case, then I'll push them into like 15, 16 hours, just doing some intermittent. But for the most part, if someone comes in, I'm like, all right, you ready to do your first 24? And then we schedule it out for that week. And like, it's not that you're just having water. Like we have tools to make it easier. But what most people find is they do it and they're like, that really wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And it really is like the mental side of saying, wow, I haven't gone 24 hours or I have gone 24 hours without food. That's like the hardest part, the mental side.
Yeah. Who would you say would be an ideal candidate versus someone that maybe you would be apprehensive about undergoing a 24-hour fast?
Yeah. So I always start with the people who shouldn't, and it's people who are pregnant, people who are breastfeeding. Pregnant, obviously the baby needs nutrients. Breastfeeding, you can do a lot of detoxing when you're fasting, and some of that can be put out through the breast milk. So you don't want to give your baby toxins. If you're still growing, you probably shouldn't fast that long. You can, but I wouldn't do it, especially consistently. If you have an eating disorder, that can be triggered by it if you don't go into it with the right mindset. And then, let's see, still growing, pregnant, breastfeeding, and then the last one's a high intense athlete. So if you need a lot of calories to do your training, if you're like an ultra marathon runner or something along those lines, I wouldn't pass for that one.
Yeah. Super random. Sorry, squirrel brain, ADD brain.
Yeah.
Only because you just like sent me back to when we all had the lunch. And this is when I first was like, dang, you must work with a lot of female clients because Jeff, the person that was also with us that day, was talking about how you helped him to find, I want to say it wasn't, oh my gosh, it was like a well-researched formula. Do you have a lot of moms that ask you about things like that? Because I think Jeff said you were the one that found this. Am I making stuff up? Do you know what I'm talking about?
What formula?
So again, it was so random. We're all like having pictures of our lunch here. And he brings up, I don't know if Chandler was asking him or if it was Haley, our photographer, but was asking him about what formula him and his wife use. And he was like, oh yeah, Skylar is the one that actually helped me found this. And I was like, you must work with a lot of female clients.
So I'm baby formula we're talking
Yes.
about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm big on ingredients. So that's applicable for men and women. It's like what is good to put in your body, what is beneficial, and what can be damaging to
Mhm.
it. So yeah, he had asked me about what, and I have a network too of people who are, they call them crunchy moms, the ones that are really aware of the ingredients.
Yeah.
So I reached out to one and I did some digging myself. So, but the ingredients, that's kind of like across the board of there are things that are beneficial for your body. There are things that are probably not so good.
Gotcha. I say
Yeah.
that more so for the females listening because I said at the top of the episode, I felt like you, again, have a lot of different data and resources. So just to reaffirm, the types of
Yeah.
questions they can come to you about, or so squirrel brain, back to
Yeah.
fasting.
No, yeah, that's great because I'll get people reaching out on Instagram and just like, hey, what's a good product for this? Or hey, what do you think of this label? And I'm totally cool with that. Like, I'm not the person that's going to make you pay me to give you feedback on ingredients. Like, I want to help people be healthier. So if
Mhm.
your audience has questions, let them know to reach out.
Yeah, slide into Skylar's DMs.
Yeah.
Who is your ideal client if you have one?
It's really interesting because it's shifted a lot specifically last couple months. So I have an employee, her name's Amy. She's phenomenal. We met each other a little over 2 years ago, and she joined my fat loss program. She lost 70 pounds in a year and just like completely transformed who she is. Like her pictures are incredible. She's jacked. She's in the best shape of her life. She's the most motivating person ever. So we tend to attract a lot of people around her age, like middle-aged women specifically. I work with people of all ages. I work with college athletes. I work with men my age. I work with older men. But the majority of the people we work with right now tend to be around that like middle-aged, either premenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal women in that age range.
Gotcha. So pretty much anyone and everyone is welcome in your DMs, is what you're saying.
They are. Yeah, yeah. I don't discriminate.
If someone did go to you, say, if their goal is bodybuilding in nature, would you or have you prepared someone for a show before? Because I know you're a lot more about, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from the outside looking in, overall wellness, lifestyle,
Yeah.
mindset, healthy relationship with food. I haven't seen necessarily like a stage specific, more like a lifestyle. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my biggest focus is lifestyle for sure. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking someone on who wanted to compete just because I know when you get to that low of body fat, macros are really effective.
Gotcha.
Macros, calories, all of that. We're really good at just like stripping down, getting you to a healthy level of body fat. But once you get to those super, super low, can become a little dangerous, especially if you get aggressive with the fasting. But I will say Amy looks stage ready and she's a beast. She hasn't counted a single calorie, but she's definitely like one of the hardest workers I know, and she's an extreme case. So
No, it's good to know because I think honestly, again, in most of my episodes, I emphasize to people, even though yes, the caption, the logo, it shows that there's bodybuilding content. I'm much more about providing resources for people on how to live a healthy life, how to apply these tips, not just in one specific goal of your life, but across life. So I actually love that you don't strictly work with bodybuilders because I think for some people, and a lot of people, unfortunately, they get to a point where they do want to hang up the heels or the bikini because maybe they didn't learn these habits from the get-go on how to have a good relationship with food or how to be mindful of your emotions. Sometimes people can get really caught up in just, hood down and just let me get to the stage and I'll deal with the carnage later, which we're not about that here. So
yeah, that's why I love what you're doing too, is because I do know that it can be pretty easy to pick up some unhealthy relationship with food or some unhealthy disorders through prepping for a show because I'm assuming it's intense. I've never done it. I've heard a lot about it. But that's why I love what you're doing because you're educating people how to do it without going insane and ruining their relationship with food and then pendulum swinging when they're done with the show, gaining a ton of weight and not being able to get it off. So
thanks. I appreciate that.
yeah.
What are I guess speaking of like educating people and lifestyle tips, what are three favorite tips that you like to give as far as staying consistent?
Staying consistent.
Mhm.
Biggest number one is plan. I do a weekly training with my clients, and every single week I started off with like, get your week planned. Because if you have specific goals that you're getting after, whether it's consistent walks or workouts or something with your meals, the odds of you actually doing it is going to be completely different if you write down, okay, this is the day I'm doing this. Here's my plan for here. Because a lot of us, like, we can get into the routine, especially if you do things more of a morning routine where you wake up, you do the same thing. But if you have it on paper, it's just so much more effective. Like, it's going to skyrocket the chances that you execute. So I'd say get a plan in place. The second thing I would say is learn how to do things in a moderate way instead of an extreme way. A lot of people I work with come from the diet weight loss culture, which is very unhealthy, as I'm sure you know. And so they're coming from the mentality of, well, if I'm going to have one cookie, it means I ruined my entire diet and now I'm going to have 20 cookies. Whereas there can be something in the middle. Like I eat cookies, I eat brownies, I eat pasta. I love the foods that I eat. And that's how you should feel. Because if you're like going on one end of the spectrum where you have to be perfect, and then the first moment notice that you can't be perfect, you go all the way on the other side, it's not going to be sustainable. You're going to yo-yo over and over and over. And I think the third would be enjoying the meals that you eat and really enjoying them. Not just, yeah, this is pretty good, but every time you sit down for a meal or 95% of the time, sitting down and feeling like you are a queen or feeling like you are a king because you're eating good food that fills you up and makes you feel amazing.
I'm trying not to laugh because I was thinking of, remember how we were having to do the lunch part?
Yep. Yep.
And
We're smiling at our salad and whatnot.
Sheila was like, all right, go ahead and like, act like you love your food. And I was like, oh, if you make that mouth noise one more time.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
right.
so when you're like, make sure you really enjoy your food, I was like, oh my God, it just sent me in
Yeah.
back.
That's the thing. Like a lot of people think because I'm in great shape that I just eat like a rabbit or I eat super bland or that I'm like this insanely disciplined person who doesn't love food. I love food. You heard it yourself. Like
I sure
I'll
did.
eat meals and I'll vocally like, oh, this is so good. Like that's how it should be. We don't need to villainize or demonize food because we think that it's bad if we overeat or we have sweets or whatnot. Like you should enjoy food. Food should be a really big part of your life.
Yeah. What are some of your go-tos? Because I remember you also mentioned you don't really go to restaurants much, but I have seen you cook some pretty serious meals on your Instagram. So what
Yeah,
are your favorites?
I'm a big meat eater. I love red meat. I know that's controversial in today's day and age, but give me a good steak, give me a burger, ground beef, even. And then I just figure out how to make it with spices, how to cook it in what oils, like grass-fed butter. I'm a big fan of. Um, so I have probably like 3 to 5 go-to meals that I just rotate, but they're delicious. Like turkey burgers is another one on there. I'll do a turkey burger salad with a bunch of things in the salad, a nice fat burning dressing. Um, just yeah, really focus on just like what spices can I use? How can I cook this so that it tastes amazing? And the cool part is also when you reduce the amount of processed ingredients in food, your taste buds change. So something that may taste like a 6 out of 10 right now, if you get rid of a lot of the processed ingredients, could bump up to an 8 out of 10 or even a 9 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
So
100% agree with that. I think so weird. I was just saying this yesterday. When I'm leading up to a show, for some reason, the idea of even like cookies sound great. Right after the show, I literally I had a bite this past weekend. And I said it's not really as great as I remember.
yeah,
A lot of the things I used to love before, I it's kind of gross. Like oh my gosh, chocolate covered cherries at Sprouts used to be a problem for me. I would binge eat an entire bag back in PT school. And during the time, again, people have heard this before, so sorry for those that I'm being redundant, but when I look back on when I would eat chocolate by the bag, and this is pre-bodybuilding me, I was 10 pounds heavier on average, and I didn't have my period. I had a lot more cravings. But now, ever since bodybuilding, which is interesting, in off season too, like for me, I'm an intuitive eater on off season. I don't track. I just go off of what feels more fueling and not an emotion based eating. But I remember for kicks and gigs, I went and got a bag and I was like, these are disgusting. So
yeah,
100% I agree that your taste buds change. It's just they start to appreciate what is helpful for the body versus emotions based, I feel.
yeah, for sure. I had a client who she lived in Canada and she had her mom lived in the States, and every couple months she would go down, drive through the border and visit her. And she had this thing where she would stop at a gas station in the States and she would get like a salty snack and she would get hot tamales, which are like those red, sweet, spicy candies. And she was, I think, only like 1 month into working in our program. And she was like, "Hey, I'm visiting my mom. Like, I normally do this. What do you think I should do?" I was like, "If it's a treat, you're only visiting there every couple months, like, enjoy yourself, do it." And she messaged me after and she's like, "I'm so shocked because I bought a bag of Cheez Its and I bought these hot tamales. I had," she said, like 2 or 3 hot tamales. I thought they were disgusting. I threw them out. And then I had the small bag of Cheez Its, but I didn't love them. I'm like, that's the power of this. Like literally within a month, your habit of how many years, instead of having to fight it, of overcoming your willpower, of having these cravings and having to say no, it's just like you change your biology a little bit. You crave different things, your taste buds change, and now you don't even have to worry about having them. You don't even want them. So it's cool.
Do you have a food like that that you used to? I know you said you grew up around healthy foods, but
Mm, I used to be a big candy guy. And I definitely like I love a piece of dark chocolate. I love sweets. Like I eat sweets multiple times throughout the week, but I think anything that's really processed now just kind of physically turns me off. Like
Mhm.
even like Oreos or any of these foods that I used to love, just the fact that they're processed now, like now that I know what these ingredients are doing, what these companies are doing, how they're making money, it's just like a quick way to turn it off for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually came across an old post because, before I have someone on the podcast, I'll scroll through their Instagram.
Scrolling.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Two of your posts gave me a heart attack. So I had to click on it because I was like, oh no, I have that in my fridge. One was the Oikos yogurt and
Yep.
stevia. Oikos, I believe you said, not that bad. It was like if it's a convenient protein snack. And I was like, "Oof, okay, let's see, let's see the stevia." And dang, you called me out. You said for those who are fasting and they've got the stevia, in their coffee or whatever, and you mentioned the sciencey explanation that it kind of is counterintuitive, is a good way to sum it up.
Yeah.
What are some foods or snacks that some listeners might be shocked by?
Ooh, this is a good one. That's a great question. Skinny pop, that comes to mind because it has skinny in the title and it's supposed to be like this light popcorn. So again, I'm an ingredient guy. So if you're looking at the macros, maybe you have a different perspective, but I'm looking at it's made with sunflower oil, which can be inflammatory, can drive up appetite. Um, it's a really good question. What type of foods do you like?
Oh, am I emotionally prepared for this conversation?
And it like what category? Like cookies, chips?
Oh man, I mean, I guess for me, I was thinking like trendy. So I know a lot of people were talking about, people love the Zevia, people love the uh, any of those probiotic sodas. I know people are big on like the Quest chips or, I feel like there's so many. The stevia got me though. I mean, I know people are probably a little mixed on that, but I think
So the stevia, if I'm thinking of the right video, is that specific product. So if
mhm,
you get like a liquid stevia, that's the only ingredient is stevia. That's great. That's fine because that doesn't affect your blood sugar. Maybe if you overdo it, it can increase cravings, like it can increase your sweet tooth. But the one I was doing was the ones you typically find in the restaurants, which is like the stevia raw.
yeah, so the little green packets.
Yeah. And if you flip those over, you look at the ingredients. It's like the first ingredient is, I think, dextrose. It's either dextrose or maltodextrin. And then the second ingredient is stevia. So there's more dextrose or maltodextrin in there than the stevia. And the dextrose maltodextrin spikes your blood sugar more than actual table sugar does.
Yeah.
But of course, they have a loophole that they don't have to put it on the label as this is 6 grams of sugar or however much it is. So
Mhm.
you think you're getting just stevia and you think you're staying in a fast if you're fasting, or you think you're not getting any blood sugar spike. But then because of that hidden ingredient that they're not putting on the front of the label, it's impacting you. So it's
Yeah.
like these tiny little things. Quest chips would be another one. They used to be a really solid company, and then I think the owner sold it. And now they have a bunch of fillers, they have some artificial sweeteners in there. So they're not the best. But I'm also a big proponent of like everything in moderation. Like
Right.
if you can find a swap, something that's better for you than the Quest chips and that fills that gap, do that. But you're not a bad person if you have a bag of Quest chips. You're not going to ruin your entire diet. Like it's about moderation, just being smart.
Right. Totally. No, the listeners that are driving, thank you for the explanation of stevia, I'm sure, because I glazed right over that. And they're probably like, wait, what? What do you
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm drinking that right now. Uh,
Yeah.
no, I agree 100%. Like if someone's on a road trip and they want some, if they're in the gas station, they only have so many things to choose from. It's like pick the lesser of evils. I think the biggest thing, like you've said, is just understanding the ingredients on the back. And, it's not the worst thing ever as long as it's not the only thing that's on a consistent basis fulfilling your macros. I think that's where people can get in a bind, especially with a macros based plan. If they're like, well, it fits my macros, so it's good, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The biggest shift for me there is like it if it fits your macros and you're able to stay on plan, great. As long as you're listening to your body, you don't notice crazy bloating, low energy. Like if you feel good, it fits your macros, cool. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you're not counting macros or maybe your appetite spiked up and you're struggling to keep under and fit those macros, then you can take a look at, okay, what are these ingredients doing and what tweaks can I make? Because a lot of times those ingredients will drive up the appetite, drive up the cravings. So now you're fighting these cravings that you wouldn't have had if you didn't have those ingredients.
yeah, no, that's a really good point. I'm glad that we dove into that. You mentioned too how red meat can be controversial, and I
Mhm.
want to circle back. What are some, if there is a current one that you're really passionate about, what are some myths that you seem to come across with your clients or like questionable trends right now?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So, as far as the weight loss industry goes, this eat less, move more. I don't like that because it doesn't take into account what you're eating and it doesn't take into account how you're moving. So a lot of people that have come to work with me have a history of just like beating their body down with two-a-days or these HIIT workouts, and they're just like exhausted, or they're eating, 1,000 calories a day or less than that, and they're not losing the weight. And so it's not always eat like in some cases, yeah, it's about eating less, but it's to me, it's about eating smarter. It's making smarter choices so your body responds more positively. And then moving more, you don't have to beat your body down. You don't have to do these insane workouts where you're gasping for air at the end. Like you can just move. You can just take a walk. You can do things that are a little lower intensity. That's a big one. The red meat is definitely a big one. I think there's the gray area where it's kind of like, well, are we doing meat or are we not doing meat? And I think there's an in between of how is the meat raised, because
Mm.
people tend to either look at I'm having the meat or I'm not, but they don't look at what was the diet of the cow. How is the cow treated? How is that going to impact the nutrients in the meat and how that affects my body?
Mhm.
So I'm a big fan of grass-fed beef because the cows are eating their natural diet. I tend to stay away from conventional beef because they're being fed corn, soy, Skittles, candy to fatten them up. And it's like,
It's,
yeah. And that doesn't do well with how it interacts with most people's bodies because up until 100 years ago, that wasn't a thing.
wow.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably something that I should have known, which I'll circle back around to this later. But earlier today, Connor's making fun of me. He's like, some days you really surprise me on both ends. Like I said something really dumb earlier. He was like, you went to grad school, right? So like, that's one of those things where I'm like, did everyone on the earth know that some cows were fed Skittles, or was that just me? So hopefully someone
That
that's
most people don't. Some people do, most people don't because you don't see it. All you walk into your grocery store and you see the meat on the shelves. You don't know anything about that cow, how it was raised, what it was fed, how it was treated.
Mhm.
The only really way you know is if you go to local small farms.
Yeah, yeah. I'm smiling because if I tell you, I'm going to tell you off camera. 'Cause
Okay.
the
Deal.
podcast, it was that bad. So people can DM me if they really want to know. Um, actually, I asked you that on the questionnaire. What's something funny or embarrassing that you've done that maybe it's funny now, but it was more embarrassing in the moment?
Yeah. It's funny you put that there and I was thinking about it. I'm like, that's such a broad question, and I still don't have anything coming to mind. Like I've done an insane amount of embarrassing things and I've made an insane amount of mistakes, but it's like being asked that question, I'm not sure. Could you like tighten
Oh,
the
yeah. Yeah. I mean, poop stories are always welcome. I've shared
Okay.
plenty here. Yeah. Like, like I'll tell you one if you tell me one.
Okay. I don't I might have a poop story.
I can tell you like a really bad one if I.
Okay. I mean, by all means, I'm not gonna say no.
So, oh my God. So I'm from Arizona. I think I told you that, right?
Yeah.
This is really bad because it's even worse on Zoom because I get to watch somebody while I tell them. I'm just gonna look away. So, so once upon a time in high school, I had a crush on this waiter that I got invited with a bunch of coworkers to go on a hike. I've always been athletic, but I was never interested in bodybuilding. I was more like I would go to the gym. I like to stay fit. I like to go on hikes. I still love being outdoors, going on hikes. You've probably been here with how outdoorsy you are, I'm sure. So once upon a time, the first and last time I went to Camelback Mountain. Woke up that morning, maybe I had a lot of sugar or something the day before, but things were just feeling a little sus. It's like, ooh, I thought I had to go. Guess I don't have to go. We drive all the way to Camelback Mountain, and still after the drive, something doesn't feel right, but nothing's ready to go. I can't believe I'm telling you this because I've literally met you in person.
I think I've got one. So yeah, keep going. I'll pay the favor.
Cool, cool. So mind you, because I liked this individual at the time, like 17, 16-year-old me, I wore my best hiking outfit, whatever that was, some like some Nike spandex tank top, whatever. So this guy and the other waiter go on up the mountain, and I'm back with this other coworker. She says, "Hey, can you hang back with me a bit? Because I'm not super in hiking shape." And I said, "Yeah, sure." And on the inside, I'm like, "Thank God," because my stomach cannot handle that intensity right now. I'm just gonna go low and slow. So we get to going, and like I said, I've never been back to this mountain since. This is the only memory I have. We're going up, and I look at her. Her name's Sammy. I was like, Sammy, I had to go back down. She's like, really? I was like, I got to go back down. She's like, okay. I can't even look at you when I'm telling you the story. So I'm like, I start by casually walking down, and then it turns into like a feverish run.
Yeah.
I don't make it.
Yep.
So I literally, I had to jump off the side of the mountain.
Goodness.
And like, I literally, it was like partially in my shorts and partially on the mountain. So I literally shit on Camelback Mountain. And there was a dog there and everything. The dog tried to come up to me and it was terrible. So we we go to, she looks at me, she's like, you looked mortified. I was like, I was. It was like bridesmaid before I came out. I was like, I just shit in the street, but I just shit on the mountain and everyone
Yeah.
except them. So I literally, we go to a Circle K and I have to take a bath in like the Circle K bathroom. It was
Yeah.
awful. When the two came back from the top, we're like, oh yeah, we just hung out down here. I was like, thank you for not saying anything. We're all four driving back in the same car. And one of the guys like, man, it smells like shit in here.
That's so tough.
Oh my God. It's like years later, and that's still, yeah. So I've never been back, but now everyone who listens to the podcast knows that.
Yeah. I feel like that's an opportunity to face your fears and to get back there soon, to come to peace with what happened.
I need to do some shadow work and face my past.
Yeah. That trauma, you got to release it.
All right, now it's your turn. I aired out my dirty laundry.
Yeah, I have so I will say I have pooped my pants like multiple times in the past few years, like more than I'd like to admit. Not like anything insane, but there's just been like I have food poisoning and I trust something I shouldn't, or so there's like those tiny ones. Thankfully I don't have anything like that's that intense,
Oh, good.
but I'll give you one from a couple weeks ago because it's recent. So I was just in Yosemite a few weeks ago, first time there, beautiful place, and we ended up. I went with a buddy, and we ended up being there the exact same time as his wife's sister and his wife's sister's friend, and they happened to have a permit for Half Dome, which is like the big hike out there. And so when you get a permit, it's four people, so they only had two, and we were there at the same time. So we're like, yeah, let's go together. It's a 16-mile hike, so it's a little bit longer, and there's like a couple bathrooms at the beginning, but there's like very beginning, and then there's one maybe like 2, 3 miles in, and then that's it for the rest of the hike. And this was day 3 of hiking, so we're living off like camp food. We're living off of those ready to eat meals that you just like pour the boiling water in. All these snacks just for carbs, like peanut butter and jellies, uh, uh, like energy bars. And so my stomach's like I'm feeling fine, but my stomach's rumbling. It's not like I'm in pain or anything. And so we go to Half Dome, which is like 8 miles in. We hike up, super, super cool hike. We're coming down. And like I would say on the way up is when I started feeling something in my stomach. I was like, I might have to use the bathroom soon. And so we make it up. We have a meal up there. We hang out there for a little bit. And then we're hiking down. And my stomach's just like, we got to do something about this. So this is kind of impressive. Like I'm a little proud of it. But we get down from because the last portion is just a bunch of rock that you're walking up, and then we get back down to where there's more dirt and there's trees there. And my buddy's like, "Hey, I'm gonna pee real quick," and I'm like, "This is my opportunity." I'm like, "So I'm gonna pee too." So he walks to a tree that's like right by where the two girls are standing, and I like go a little further back, and I just do like a drive by. Like I drop my pants, I get rid of it, and then I pull them back up.
Uh-huh.
And like I'm so impressed with myself because it's literally the same amount of time that he's peeing that I finish doing what I have to do and I get back up. But then it was like 8 miles until we had to get back. So we're going and I haven't wiped and my butt's starting to itch.
Oh no.
And so we find there was like a river, thankfully maybe like 3 miles from that point.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, hey guys, we should plunge in the river.
Oh my God.
just because I'm like so uncomfortable. So thankfully, plunge, feel a little better, not great, but then we hiked another 3 miles till the bathroom, and I can take care of things. But it is not comfortable hiking that long. When
No.
yeah, yeah,
If any of them listen to this episode, they're gonna be like, man, he really
yeah.
because I'm the
I
same
told my friend after, I was just like, hey, can I share a secret? Like, you can't tell anyone. I don't know if they'll ever know, but
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
yeah, because
I
it's like one of those things like you have a secret that no one else knows, and I'm like trying to act normal. I'm like, I hope it doesn't smell, and I'm uncomfortable, and so
yeah.
yeah.
That's why I had to say that comment of the guy in the car where he's like, man, it smells like shit in there. And I'm in the back seat. I'm like,
Yep, that's so tough.
oh my God. And one of the other guys is like, oh, it's me. And I was like, yeah, it's for sure you. Oh my God.
And thanks for taking the fall.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for sharing that, Skylar. I think people feel so much closer to you now that you shared it.
I'm so glad.
Was there anything that we didn't chat about today? I feel like it's so hard for me to ask a good question after a poop story. So like any logical questions that I may have had are out the door after that.
I don't think so. I mean, I could go for hours about all this weight loss, lifestyle, weight loss industry, fasting, ingredients, but I think that's what I would just say for the people listening is like if a 24 seems impossible to you, just question like why do I believe that? Start to question. You don't have to immediately do a 24. You don't have to ever in your life if you don't want to. But I'm just a big fan of like questioning narratives, questioning what we're told or what we believe and figuring out is this actually true?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. I guess one other thing, it's weird to pivot to something like more serious, but I did want to ask you just because I think that again, another theme on your page that I appreciate seems to be like a lot of general positivity. So I think people can learn from you not just about, how to be healthy, but also how to lead a more authentic self improvement, I guess, lifestyle for lack of better words. And there was one thing that you said that I wanted to ask you about today. You said on your 30th birthday post, doing things that scare you sucks at first, but you'll always come out the other side a better man. So, what's something that you're currently doing that scares you? And then I also wanted to ask you, what's something that maybe you've struggled with recently that you've overcome? Those are some
Mm,
things I do like to ask people. So, first,
yeah,
something you're doing that scares you, and then second, something that you've struggled with that you're trying to overcome.
that's an awesome question. Both of those. Something that scares me right now that I'm doing, honestly, for me, it's exploring a new romantic relationship.
Mhm.
Um, I it's definitely like I love growth. I love working on myself. I love finding areas that I can improve and working on them. And, career, physical, my body, like those are things I can consistently practice no matter what. But the relationship is like I don't really get a chance to practice it if I'm not in one, you know?
Yeah.
And so having like I've had a couple relationships over the last few years, but nothing crazy serious. But for now, it's like having the ability to work on that. And for me, like I'm same as you, recovering people pleaser. I'm working on that. And so like being able to speak my truth in times where I want to, or being able to have uncomfortable conversations, like it's scary. It's definitely scary, but it's one of those things where when it's over, when you come out the other side, you feel a lot better. So I'm working on getting better at that for sure. What was the second question?
Oh, you're good. We can pivot into that one, another one. You said a
Okay.
couple things there that I appreciate. It can be uncomfortable. Even I was thinking about this today because I was like, if it comes up, I'll admit that because I love being honest. I think that's really important. I mean, even with coming onto a podcast episode, I get anxious every time before
Mhm.
I start. It's the silliest thing. I think it comes from me wanting the episode to be, quote, perfect or, to fulfill the vision. So I love admitting to people like, yeah, I get anxiety or yeah, it's tough to ask the questions. So thank you for answering these honestly too, because I love when people do that and say, yeah, actually I am struggling with something. Are you
Yeah.
currently pursuing a relationship with someone or you're just looking for someone to pursue a relationship with?
No, so I'm in one with someone right now. It's still in the beginning stages, so like I'm just hesitant about sharing that stuff online because I don't know. It's a different part of my life. A lot of it I want to keep personal. But yeah, so starting it, it's fresh, and it is learning about like how to, instead of what I used to do in past relationships is just like be the nice guy and I'm here for you, but that's really not sustainable and that's not building a healthy or true foundation. So yeah, it is just learning how in those moments that are a little nerve-wracking or scary, how to still step into that fear.
Was she one of the ones on the hike?
No. No.
Sorry to out your poop story to her.
Yeah, that would be good.
So for those listening, make sure to follow Schuyler on Instagram. If not, for the tips on food and ingredients, for the cat content, or
Yep.
to be a potential client for Reach. I think, like I said, it's a very well-rounded program, and I wanted to bring you on here because I think a lot of females, and I don't like generalizations, this is just what people say to me. I think a lot of females struggle to find a coach in general that they trust, but for some reason, just like any doctor, someone might prefer a male, someone might prefer a female. So I like to give resources for someone who's understanding and fun, but also really knowledgeable in what they do and has a clear why. So I'm really glad that they got to hear about you today, not
Yeah.
just your business you, but the human you. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Shannon. Thanks for asking the great questions too.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I appreciate that. I tried to be prepared. Can you go ahead and plug where they can find you, message you, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, best place, easiest place is Instagram. It's at Skyfit, SCHUYFIT. And you can shoot me a message there and I respond pretty quickly. So
Perfect. Well, yeah. And then everyone listening, if you don't already, make sure to follow all of the shenanigans on Instagram. Send me an email at drnabikinipodcast.com if you have any guest suggestions or if you have any contributions to the new segment, Anonymous House Calls, or if you've got a good poop story that you want me to share anonymously, you know? So I hope that y'all enjoyed our episode today and that you have a great week. Bye, guys.
see ya.